Hey guys, it's Maggie and I'm going to explain some stuff. Hey, so, my name is Maggie and when I study for things, I need to have someone to explain them to. And most of my friends are pretty busy most of the time. They have busy lives, so I was like, I'm going to explain it to the randos of the internet. Or maybe I know you. You know, I don't know why you're watching this. Point being, today we're going to start with my A-Push, AP US History, for those of you who do not know what A-Push means. My A-Push notes right here, and we're going to start today with the Age of Exploration and American colonization, although I don't really think we'll get to that today. Mostly Christopher Columbus, that kind of thing. So, to understand Christopher Columbus and his reason for coming to America, you need to understand what was going on in England before he came. So, 1347, 1348, the bubonic plague. We all know what that is, Black Plague. Very, very bad. It mostly came to Europe because of Genoese traders with the silk and spice routes across the Black Sea. So the ships were infested with plague-carrying rats, and it was absolutely devastating to Europe. I don't think there's another event in Europe that was worse. It's like 75% of the population died or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But it's kind of debated whether it was a good or bad thing because it ultimately ushered in the Renaissance period, which, as we all know, was very, very exciting and very, very good. And it was like, rebirth, great, proliferation of knowledge. So, the Europeans steal a lot of innovations from other people, like the Latin sail, the Muslim people, the Islamic, that's like a triangular sail. And gunpowder, which was originally from Chinese fireworks, and then Europeans were like, hey, what if we made this a weapon? So that's just something that you need to understand for like the ships that they were making and the guns that they were using. That's Europeans are all like, oh, we invented this. It's like, you really didn't. So, Columbus era. Fun fact, people didn't actually believe the earth was flat. They knew pretty much that the earth was round. They had known this from about the time of the Greeks. The Greeks were great astronomers, like they were so good. But they just didn't think that he could actually find a route all the way to India and like make it basically with like food and stuff. But Columbus thought he could island hop. So he's like, I don't have to make it all the way to India first try. I just have to, get to an island, restock there, and then keep going. Quick note, the reason why they were trying to find a route to India is because Constantinople. Are we going to talk about that? We're going to talk about that. Notes. At the time of Columbus era, the books were written on vellum, which is kind of like parchment. It's like animal skin, and you would stretch it out and dry it. It was super expensive, also because like anything written in a book were written by monks. Gutenberg, or Johannes Gutenberg, stole this from the Chinese, made this movable type printing press. The Chinese had this wooden block printing press, but Chinese characters are basically pictures. So what Gutenberg did was he could capitalize on this because German language has separate letters that you put together to make words, like English. So, and then they also came out with hand-laid paper and fibers that were laid out and dried. This entire invention of the printing press and being able to make books that were cheaper led to this huge spread of knowledge from everywhere, and trade was going crazy and everything was going crazy. And it was exactly at this time that the gap or the canal next to Constantinople was taken over by the Ottomans. So it was this really important gap. Maybe I'll put a map in here when I'm editing this. And it was a really important trade route to be able for the Europeans to be able to get through and trade with India, because otherwise you'd have to go on land, and that's dangerous, and also just it takes a while. It takes a long time. So then 1453, Mehmet II, Sultan, Ottoman, Turkish, he didn't like that Constantinople was Christian. And Constantinople, if you remember, is the remaining part of the Holy Roman Empire, or not the Holy Roman, the normal Roman Empire. Constantinople is left over from the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire. It's the only thing that's left. And he didn't like that it was Christian. So he was like, hey, Ottomans are going to take over Constantinople. Fun, cool weapon thing, the basilica. It was 27 feet long cannon. It was a big cannon. It had an 8-inch thick barrel, and it could shoot a half-a-ton rock over a mile, which was insane for the time. And so the guy who had engineered the basilica, they made it out of bronze, which bronze is a great metal because it's really easy to like shape and to make things out of, but it's also not the most stable thing in the world. So the guy who made it was like, hey, only fire this 7 times a day or it might explode. They fired it more than 7 times a day. They were like, screw that guy. We don't need to listen to science. And it exploded and it killed a lot of people. But point being, Constantinople did fall. Historians still debate whether the basilica was really a big part of the fall, but point being, it was like a turning point in the way that weapons were made. They're like, we can make huge cannons now. It did blow up and kill a lot of people though. Now, the Islams control this really important trade point. So I guess we'll have to find another way to India. So, Portugal. Portugal needs to find another way to India. King John I and his son, Henry the Navigator. There's a lot of Henrys in Europe. This one's Henry the Navigator. We're just gonna call him that. We're not gonna call him Henry because then it's like, which Henry? Henry the Navigator laid claim to Morocco, and he was basically like, hey, let's find different trade routes. Trade is super important. Portugal's a really important country. So Bartholomew Dias was the first person to sail around Africa at the Cape of Good Hope. So they went from Portugal all the way down under Africa. And it took a while, but it did work, and they didn't have to go through the thing. So Vasco da Gama capitalized on this and was like, hey, let's make money. So that was one of the things they did. Now, Christopher Columbus. We all know who this guy is. He was Genoese, so remember those guys that brought the plague to Europe? Yeah, that's Columbus. He's part of those people. He basically revolutionized exploration. He was never formally educated, but he was a great map maker, brilliant guy. So with all of his faults, which we'll get there, he was smart. He was a smart guy. So he stumbled upon the Bahamas, and he was sponsored by the Spanish monarchs. We're gonna cut to talking about the Spanish monarchs. The two most important names, Ferdinand, Isabella. So basically, they were married, they unified 2 governments, and were basically the unification of Spain. So Spain at that time had several provinces, and Ferdinand and Isabella were from Aragon and Castile. So at the time, when Spain was all divided, the North African Muslims were in the Moors in Spain, and they basically controlled Granada. So the Jews and the Muslims were all in Spain, and Sixtus the Fourth, which is confusing because he's Sixtus, but he's the 4th. He was a pope. He's not the best pope, probably. He was super into like nepotism, which is giving positions to family members. A lot of bad things that a pope probably shouldn't do. That seems to be a common theme in Europe for a while. But anyway, so he was super huge into indulgences and raised a lot of questions among followers. So everything in Christianity in Portugal and Spain were really unsettled at that time. So he organizes the marriage between Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile. And he started the Reconquista of Granada, or Reconquista of Granada. And that's basically taking all the Muslims and the Jews that were in Spain and moving them out, which is like, hey, that's not cool, but that's what they did. Most expelled Jews went to the Ottomans, which the Ottomans were like, great, we love Jews because Jews tend to be, like the Jews and the Muslims in Spain, oh my god, they were so educated and smart, and they made the economy boom. The Ottomans were like, yes, come to us. Other Jews and Muslims converted to Christianity, but they were seen as kind of like fake converts. Like, did you really convert? We don't know. And so they were antagonized constantly by the Spanish Inquisition, which no one ever expects. Alright, so it was actually ended up being a huge mistake for Spain to expel the Jews and Muslims. It caused a huge, what my teacher calls a brain drain. Spain basically almost fell apart because all of their educated people were gone. But anyway, back to Columbus. So Isabella bought into his idea. She was like, sure, whatever, you might be a little bit crazy, your crew might die, but fine. So the crew was squirrely. They were kind of like, we're gonna die. They had never gone that far west before. No one had really gone west before. They're like, that's an ocean. There's nothing there. They almost turned back like a ton of times. Like there was this one time when the entire crew was like mutinizing and they were like, Columbus, we're gonna kill you and we're gonna turn back around. And Columbus said, give me 3 days, like just 3 more days and then we can turn around. And literally the morning of the 3rd day when they were going to kill him, someone spotted land. Like it was that close. And they found an island and they named it San Salvador. They thought it was the Japanese archipelago, or at least Columbus did. It wasn't, it was an island, but you know, it's what they thought it was. So they were really excited, and the natives there were very, very nice. They were really great people, and they were helping them out, and they swam ashore, and they traded with them, and they were very sweet, and Columbus was like, sweet, these people are great, they're super nice. I love these guys. So he left about 40 men on the island, and then it was like, hey, we're gonna sail back to Spain, and we're gonna get more people and be like sponsored and get more money, and then we can come back and everything will be great. This is great. So he goes back to Europe, and while he's back in the 40 men that he left behind did some not so great things, and they were like being really rude, and they raped some people, and yeah, the natives were really mad, and so they killed all of the 40 men, all of them. And Columbus comes back and he's heckin' mad because he was like, you just killed all of my friends, and they were like, your friends were killing us. And so he basically he slaughters all of them, the entire population, and he now really hates natives because they killed his friends. And he set this example of being absolutely cruel to natives. And that's kind of why a lot of other people that came from Europe were mean. So blame those 40 guys, because it's all their fault. Columbus died actually thinking that he had still found the Japanese archipelago, and yeah, so that's kind of sad. But this guy, Amerigo Vespucci, was the first one to say, hey, maybe this isn't actually Japan. And so then later people recognized him, and that's why it's called America, because Amerigo Vespucci. And that's where we're gonna end today, with Columbus being sadly dead, thinking that he found Japan when he didn't find Japan after being mean to a bunch of people. So, and the next, we're going to get into Cortez and all the mean things that he did to natives, because he wasn't great either. Thank you guys so much for watching. I don't know why you're watching, but thanks anyway. Thanks for helping me study, basically. See ya.